And tape to the front.
I'd like to call this August 10th, 2021 Johnston County Board of Education meeting to order. Ms. Jackson, we have 6 board members present. Mr. Al Bird is on his way. He's running a little bit late this afternoon, so we do have a quorum. At this time, I'll call on Mr. Mike Wooten for the prayer, followed by Ms. Leanne Andrews for the pledge.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just come before you and just give you praise for the many opportunities we have to serve you, dear Lord. Thank you for the many employees and students and staff that are coming back to school, dear Lord. We just ask you to keep them safe and have a prosperous and super learning year, dear God. And as we make decisions in this board meeting tonight, I pray that you touch every decision, dear God, that help all our decisions will be pleasing in your eyes, and we'll carefully give you all praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Voting for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose stated on our agenda.
Moved.
Motion by Ms. Sessoms,
Second.
second by Mr. Wooten. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries 6-0. Closed session. Good afternoon and welcome to the Johnston County Board of Education, August 10th, 2021 meeting. We have already had a quorum with our Pledge of Allegiance and prayer, as followed by our closed session. So we'll start with the approval of our minutes. I moved that the minutes from the regular session July 13th and the special session minutes on July 29th be approved as presented. Let me put that in a motion.
So moved.
Your second, Mr. Wooten as the motion and Mr. Carroll as the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Start with discussion and adjustments to the agenda, starting with Mr. Johnston.
No adjustments.
Mr. Carroll.
No adjustments.
Mr. Byrd. Ms. Sessoms.
Yes, sir. I'd like to move that we remove items 5, 6, and 7 from the consent items and move that to the September meeting. I would also like to add a COVID update under item D with the Assistant Superintendent of Admin and Auxiliary Services. And that would replace the finance update.
Thank you, Ms. Sessoms. So we will remove the motion. The adjustment is items 5, 6, and 7 of consent be removed and added to our September meeting, as well as replace 9D finance with the assistant superintendent with the COVID guidance update. So thank you. Ms. Andrews.
No adjustment, sorry.
Mr. Wooten.
No adjustment.
No adjustments. Okay, so we have a motion for the adjustment. I'll entertain a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. At this time, I'll go to updates from our board committee, starting with finance.
Mr. Chairman, due to no budget being approved in the capital, we're standing by for their approval so we know where to adjust our budget. So hopefully, I would hope next with school board meeting, we'll have a approved budget and we can give a budget update for the county. As far as ESSER funds updates, we'll have that next month as well. And just to let everybody know, there's going to be a lot of initiatives that address learning loss in that ESSER funds update. So I'm excited about that to see what we can do for student learning loss. And there'll be a finance committee meeting held before next board meeting, so that would be a public meeting as well, and so a lot will be addressed between this meeting and next month's meeting as far as our school budget for next year.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten. Go to the Legal Services Committee.
No report.
Policy Committee.
Yes, sir. We have a meeting scheduled on Thursday at 2 o'clock. At our last policy review meeting, we took a look at Mr. Johnston's proposal. And just to update our public on how that works, whenever we review a policy, our board attorney and the attorneys at the North Carolina School Boards Association, they review any amendments or new policies to make sure that we don't have a conflict with state or federal law, state board policy, or one of our own existing policies. And we have asked that an ad hoc committee of parents and educators be set up to take a look at Mr. Johnston's policy proposal and make recommendations to the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Sessoms. Thank you all for all your hard work on these committees. Just to let the public know, our Finance Committee as well as our Policy Committee, they are open meetings to the public. The meeting dates are published and they're out, I believe they're outside the boardroom, so you're welcome to come to those meetings. They are open. So thank y'all for your hard work again. It's and just talking about the finance, I read something yesterday that I see where the General Assembly is looking at a 5.5% increase for teachers over a 2-year period. Does that sound right, Mr. Britt? Okay, so they are making some kind of headway, and hopefully we'll have something pretty soon so that we can know where we need to move from there.
And Mr. Chair, may I add that our substitute pay will be tied to whatever the General Assembly puts forward and approves as far as teacher salary increases.
So stay tuned on that information. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Caitlin Furr for special recognitions.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bracy, Chairman Sutton, Vice Chair Sessoms, members of the board. Tonight we come before you with just a few special recognitions to close out the summer and kick off the school year. The first thing we wanted to recognize was the success of our summer learning program. Our summer learning program was a little different this year, as you all know, but I really wanted to bring it before you tonight because I had several people reach out for me, from parents to site directors to our area assistant superintendents, and they really wanted to celebrate the successes that we saw at this summer learning program. As you all know, it was quite the undertaking. We had approximately 1,057 school-based employees working this summer to make this summer learning program a success, as well as dozens of employees here at the central office to make sure that everything went on without a hitch. And specifically, several of our site directors wanted to give a praise to Ms. Tanya Leathers and Ms. Patty Whittington for all of their hard work. They provided support and guidance that site directors needed to make sure that this was a success. We had more than 300 bus drivers to work this summer to get our students to and from the summer learning site safely. And we had more than 100 school nutrition employees that made sure students were kept fed breakfast and lunch every day. Because of the hard work of these individuals, we were able to educate approximately 7,900 students every day during our summer learning program. It's quite an impressive number compared to our typical summer learning program. The goal of the summer learning program was to address learning loss as a result of COVID-19, and I think we did just that. Ms. Christy Stevenson is going to come before you next month to give you some final numbers, but I did want to just share a couple successes with you. We reached out to our high schools, and we had approximately 105 seniors graduate this summer because they were able to take advantage of this program. So these are just some smiling faces that we had from kids this summer, a couple from Selma Elementary, a couple of them from Riverwood, and you'd think summer school, maybe they dread going, but everything they did looked like a blast. So we're proud of everyone's hard work and wanted to make sure you all knew what went into making that happen and just celebrate them today. So if you want to, just give everyone a round of applause who took a part in summer learning. And the next person we're going to recognize is Mr. John Furr. John, you can come forward. Stand right here. So John is a 2021 graduate of Smithfield Selma High School. He was a student in the Fire Science Academy, which provides the necessary training to students to complete Firefighter 1 and 2. The demanding training includes approximately 514 hours of classroom, hands-on, and practical skills on topics such as hazmat operations and traffic incident management system. It also teaches professionalism, respect, responsibility, and physical fitness skills. John demonstrated excellence in leadership skills, which earned him a nomination and acceptance to the NC Office of State Fire Marshal Junior Firefighter Challenge. The challenge pairs them with other high school students across the state to compete in various life-saving skills. After his graduation, he was offered a firefighter position with the Selma Fire Department, to which he accepted. John is our first graduate from our fire science program to receive a paid firefighter position upon graduation. We know there will be many more to follow his footsteps. With him tonight is his former instructor, Fire Academy Chief Edward Twigg, and Principal David Allen. His current chief, Mr. Philip McDaniel, wishes he could be here with us tonight, but we have our current, those who helped get him here. We know with his training and experience, he will be an excellent addition to the town of Selma. He truly exemplifies what a firefighter should be. And the next person we have recognized tonight is quite fitting. It's Miss Suzanne Lujan. Miss Lujan is one of our first excellent staff members we get to recognize tonight. She is our Executive Director of Career and College Readiness. In her role, she helps oversee career and technical education courses and programs in our schools, just like the Fire Science Academy. Miss Lujan is outstanding at her job, and you would know if you ever get the chance to work with her. I'm sure you remember her and her times that she's come up and presented our countless state and national student winners from many CTSO and CTE competitions. But she herself just won an award. She was recognized as the North Carolina Association of Career and Technical Education's North Central Region Administrator of the Year. She was recognized in July at virtual ceremony, and if I remember correctly, you got a surprise package in the mail? They were unable to give her award in person, so they were able to send it to her at her home. So we wanted to make sure she got her due in front of you today as well. And keeping with the theme of outstanding employees we have Mr. Chase Farrell. So I have personally had the opportunity to work with Mr. Farrell quite a bit over this past school year, and let me tell you that it is an eye-opening experience because he is one of the most passionate individuals I've ever worked with when it comes to his job, which is student and school safety, and he is exemplary in his role. I've had the opportunity to attend meetings where he has led school leaders, county leaders, and students in things that they need to know for school preparedness in case we're ever in the event of an emergency. But that's not why he's with us tonight exactly. He was just recently selected to serve on the North Carolina Safety Director Advisory Council. The Advisory Council was created by the NC Center for Safer Schools in an effort to improve communication and to support school safety as needed. The requirements of an advisory council member include, but are not limited to, hosting regional training opportunities, identifying training and technical support needs related to school safety, improving collaborative efforts amongst stakeholders, and representing their region at the advisory council meetings. Mr. Farrell will represent the North Central region, which is made up of Person, Orange, Chatham, Lee, Harnett, Wake, Durham, Granville, Vance, Warren, Franklin, Johnston, Wilson, Nash, and Edgecombe counties. So out of that whole region, there was 2 people selected, and we have one of them here. So we are very proud of Mr. Farrell and all that he does, and like to give him a round of applause. And right on theme is Miss Dana Edwards. And if you've ever worked with Mr. Chase Farrell, you know the first thing he ever does is give credit to his team first. And he does have great individuals working for him, and one of those people is Miss Dana Edwards. She recently was selected as the president of the North Carolina School Nutrition Association. She is our director of school nutrition, and she's played a vital role in establishing a new sense of normalcy since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Last March, she hit the ground running, and she and her team established the curbside meal service for all students in Johnston County. Since March of last year, school nutrition has served, are you guys ready? 3,813,010 meals to students in Johnston County for free. So she has just begun her term as North Carolina's president for the School Nutrition Association. In her role, she'll be a voice to share all of the positive and rewarding things happening in the program. She'll also attend meetings throughout the year and all across the state to help other programs. Her theme for the year is Bloom into Your Potential, and she wants to help other school nutrition departments do just that. And I think she has a little something for you guys that goes with her theme. So, Dana?
No, not food tonight. Not food. That's right, it's in there. Yes, I am honored to be the president of the association this year. And I do have one of my pins. Every president creates a pin with their theme. And so I do have that for everybody tonight.
And not to toot my team's horn, but our graphic designer, Miss Magina Howell, helped her come up with that design.
While she's doing that, I just want to give a shout out to the child nutrition team. They do an outstanding job, not only in our schools, but they also provide us meals here, and it's always a treat to just see what they've prepared for us. So, Miss Dana, please thank your entire group, and especially Miss Evelyn, because those desserts are phenomenal.
And with that, that's all the special recognitions I have for you guys tonight. I'm going to go back and run the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Furr.
Thank
At
you.
this time, we'll go through our advisory appointments, starting with Archer Lodge Middle School.
Chairman. Archer Lodge Middle School Principal Melissa Herbert has one renewal of approval for the Archer Lodge Middle School Advisory Council. With the board's approval, I recommend the following current advisory member, Melissa Gibson, renew her term on the Archer Lodge School Advisory Council for a 3-year term, 2021 to 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. I'll let that stand as our motion. Now to Selma Elementary School.
Principal Maritza Rosado has one new member for the approval for the Selma Elementary School Advisory Council. Sarah McAllister has been approved by Principal Rosado and fellow advisory board members to appoint as an advisory member. This is a 3-year term that would start 2021 and run until 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'll let that stand as our second. And Mr. Chad McLam, principal of Corinth Holders Elementary, has 2 new members for approval tonight. I recommend appointing Stefanski and Ashley Young on the Corinth Holders Elementary School Advisory for a 3-year term, 2021-2024. Also, at North Johnston Middle School, Principal Heather Anders has 2 renewals and 2 new members for approval to her advisory council. With the board's approval, I recommend appointing Haywood Watson, Amy Evans, Jamie Wilkinson, and Robert Talton on the North Johnston Middle School Advisory Council for a 3-year term, 2021-2024. And last but not least, Powhatan Elementary School.
Mr. Chairman, Principal Dan Kerwin has 2 renewals at Powhatan Elementary School, Katie Collins and Megan Matthews, for a 3-year term, 21 through 24.
We have a motion and a second on our advisory council appointments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Next on our agenda is public comment. We will start that at 6 o'clock. We'll continue with our meeting. Now going to our administrative reports and recommendations. Dr. Bracy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, at this time, I ask that the board approve consent items numbers 1 through 5.
Entertain a motion to approve consent items 1 through 5.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Sessom, second by Mr. Carroll. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Dr. King. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Bear with us. We're going to, that's right. Yeah. We've got a new system tonight, ladies. I apologize. Dr. King.
Good evening, board members. She stepped out just a moment to get a computer, but I think these items I may be able to press through. Unfortunately, I will deprive you of an opportunity to hear again from our regional CCP Director of the Year, Ms. Suzanne Lujan. She'll be back in a minute to answer any questions. But there are two items in her area. The first item tonight is a request to purchase textbooks from the JCC bookstore on the JCC campus. These are expenses that are agreed upon in our MOU with JCC and support our students who are participating in our CCP, CTLA, and ECA programs. Those students are, of course, taking college-level courses, and as part of our agreement, we do provide those textbooks for them. This year, based on our estimates as to the number of students who will be taking courses and based on what we paid last year, we are requesting approval to purchase textbooks in the amount of up to $300,000 from the Barnes & Noble JCC bookstore. And Ms. Lujan is back if you'd like to ask her a question.
I'll entertain a motion to approve spending up to $300,000 with Barnes & Noble for our textbooks.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Wooten, second by Mr. Johnston. Any questions or comments?
I'm assuming all this is rolled into our budget, built into our budget.
Just for my information, Barnes & Noble, I mean,
The Barnes & Noble is no, right, but the vendor that JCC contracts with, it's Barnes & Noble College Division. They have an agreement, JCC has an agreement with Barnes & Noble to use their company as their sole proprietary of their JCC bookstore. So when you go into the JCC bookstore, you're actually buying from Barnes & Noble College through the JCC bookstore. So it's buying through the JCC bookstore. And that's the number we put there is just a up to. We do price out and look for a better deal. We look to try and buy from the publisher if we can.
Right.
It gives us a discount, and we were able to do that this fall, which was a pretty significant savings. But sometimes we do still need to use the bookstore as well. So
Okay.
it's just up to, but anticipated less.
okay.
All right, we'll have any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 7-0.
Okay, the next one is related to the to CCP, and it's for the fees that we pay for students to participate in the Career and College Promise program that JCC charges students to attend their courses. So and it also includes e-texts. So e-texts are the fees and e-texts, which are materials that are automatically added to students' accounts on the first day of classes, which JCC is now calling My Materials or First Day Texts, for CCP students, CTLA students, and ECA students. We are estimating the same as, based on the enrollment in the program and based on what we spent last year, and requesting to spend up to $250,000 in fees for the fall and spring semester to JCC. So the vendor is JCC.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this up to $250,000 to JCC for the student fees and e-text. Motion by Mr. Byrd, second by Mr. Johnston. Any questions or comments?
How many students do we have in this program?
Well, ECA has approximately 275 students, and CTLA has approximately 250. I mean, we won't know for sure until after the 10-day count, the exact numbers, but somewhere around that. So about 525 between our two early colleges, and about, again, until we have actual program numbers, and we don't have enrollment for the spring until fall, they enroll semester by semester. But based on last year's numbers, it'll be somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 CCP students. So a total of around 2,000 to 2,500
Okay.
kids.
And what do these, just for the public, what do these fees cover for a student?
So JCC charges us charges all their students. I mean, not just us. All the students an activity fee, a technology fee, and the CAPS fee.
according to our memorandum of understanding, we pay the activity fee and the technology fee. And then, of course, the My Materials that I referenced before. The CAPS fee, based on our memorandum of understanding, are picked up by the students and their parents. And we do have a waiver process in place for students who might have some difficulty in being able to pay that CAPS fee.
And those technology fees, if I'm not mistaken, go to access like the early or the Learning Resource Center and all their computer labs and things of that nature, correct?
Correct.
And their library is pretty phenomenal, so.
Yes.
So basically, I mean, if we had 1,100 kids go, you're thinking it's more than that, though, year long?
Yeah, well, year long, it'll probably be it will be a little more that are in CCP, and then add on to CTLA and ECA students as well.
So it's really a minimal cost per, I'm just trying to think,
Yeah,
per student.
typically, if you want to give like an average, it's probably around $35 a kid per semester in the program.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. Does that also include parking, or is that an additional fee?
Includes.
Okay, great.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 7-0.
Board members, our final item of the night is for informational decodable text sets. We are really excited about this opportunity to share with you what informational decodable text sets are. Many of you have probably heard in the news or in other publications about the state's move towards the science of reading. And these will be some of the resources that will support our work in that direction or in that area. Our CIA officer, Ms. Suzanne Mitchell, will come forward at this time and share a brief presentation about informational decodable text sets, or GEODs.
Good evening, Chairman Sutton, Lady Vice Chair Sessoms, Dr. Bracy, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you tonight for a few minutes about literacy in Johnston County and in our state, and as well as my end request, which is around decodable text for small group reading instruction for students in kindergarten through second grade. I want to start by, first of all, just sharing a little bit of information about letters. Johnston County was a bit ahead of the curve when we started a cohort of 120 teachers, principals, CIA support staff in letters training a year ago. We had no idea at that time that Catherine Truitt was going to be our new state superintendent. We had no idea that she would secure funding for every single pre-K through fifth grade teacher in the state of North Carolina to receive letters training over the next 2 years. It is a huge initiative. And we are really excited about it. We chose letters because it really is the gold standard. If you've read any of the research coming out of Mississippi about the huge gains that they've had in reading, they did statewide letters training. So it's an exciting thing. Now, there will be 3 state cohorts this year. The first one is starting in about a month. Johnston County is actually in the second cohort. So we'll be starting in January. In the meantime, the group that started last year, we've completed the first half of the training. And while the new staff will get started in January, we'll be finishing our second half. LETTERS is an acronym for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. I think it's really important to clearly articulate what LETTERS is not. It is not a program and it is not a curriculum. It is better described as a 2-year course around the science of reading research. Unfortunately, this research has not been widely taught in our colleges and universities. In fact, there are Facebook groups called What I Wish I'd Learned in College About Reading that are all aligned to the science of reading because this has not been widely embraced yet. but there is a movement sweeping the country to ensure that our instruction aligns with this science. And LETRS provides that why for our curriculum that we use for foundational skills. It provides the why for foundations, for Haggerty. It will really give our teachers the expertise and the knowledge that they need to take whatever curriculum we have now or in the future and be able to use that and make decisions based on the science behind how we learn to read. Now, the next slide, if you'll go on to the next one, shares some information about why we need decodable text and what they are. How many of you, if you've been around for a while, you've heard of guided reading and you know about leveled text? You've probably been in schools that have whole rooms, leveled book rooms. They've spent tens of thousands of dollars on leveled text sets. Decodable text sets are specifically designed for our earliest readers, kindergarten through second grade. They match the skills that they are being taught in class in kindergarten through first grade. To use a math analogy, if you were teaching children one-to-one correspondence, you wouldn't suddenly throw them in a math group where they're using multiplication. And yet, when we use leveled readers exclusively, that is exactly what we're doing, because the text in leveled readers are controlled for things like predictability, to match the picture. All things that we know are not in the benefit of our younger learners. They need to learn to trust the phonics instruction that's happening in the classroom. So they need to practice in text that does that. So decodable text is controlled in the sense that it follows the scope and sequence that they've been taught. We don't have book rooms full of decodable text. We just don't. We have some that came with our Into Reading purchase, but we need more, quite frankly. We set out to, we developed a rubric of what we were looking for in decodable text. When we met to look at the companies that put in a bid, we decided on some of our non-negotiables. And one of those was that the majority of the book should be informational text, because that background knowledge that students build in K2 is so critical to reading comprehension. If you don't know what the words mean, sometimes it doesn't matter if you can decode them if you don't know what they are. So the informational text really builds background knowledge in science and social studies. The committee included principals, a couple of principals, an AP, teacher, coach, as well as the teaching and learning specialist within CIA. And the next slide shows the process. We figured out our rubric, we put out the RFP, had a committee look at the options, and our final choice was GEODS. GEODS completely aligns to Foundations, which is our core phonics program. And so it is perfectly aligned. The scope and sequence is there. It includes 384 full-color books about all kinds of topics, as well as over 300 black and white copies of the books for students to take home for practice. So it's going to be an exciting purchase for our K2 teachers. If you'll go to the next slide, we're sharing one kit per 2 teachers. The cost of each kit is $2,956. That's shared between 2 classrooms for a total of $452,000. You see the number up there, $818. Again, 384 books does not include the 384 books that are black and white that students can take home with them. So we respectfully ask that you consider this purchase so that we can build that repertoire of decodable text that our students need. It is a one-time purchase. It is not an evolving purchase. It is a one-time situation. Thank you.
Thank you. This is an action item, so I'll entertain a motion to approve geodes for the amount of $452,818.55.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Sessoms,
Second.
second by Mr. Wooten. Any questions or comments?
I got a question. On the black and white books, is that something you print off and give to the
They're
student?
actually bound.
Okay.
They're already bound. No ink involved.
And this is for kindergarten through second grade teachers?
I could see some cases where there may be some third grade readers that might need some of the higher levels, but in general, it is to support K2.
And this will be across the county
Yes,
in all of
ma'am.
our schools?
Well, first of all, I am thrilled with the
know.
training of teachers in the science of reading. For those who aren't familiar, reading is a science, and teaching it. And teachers have not historically been trained to teach reading, and this is hitting it right on the head. And I'm sorry we have to wait till January, but we have some people trained. But this will make a huge impact. So I am thrilled. I am thrilled. It's and we need it in our colleges and our universities.
That is also part of the legislation. is
Right,
to try
right, that we start addressing this in colleges and universities. Is this is enough? What you're asking for, these,
We feel like it is. It's one kit per 2 classrooms. Remember, it's 384
84
books,
books,
and that
so it's-
includes multiple copies, so it can be used in small group reading. We think it will be
now, is there
sufficient.
training, now, are we talking about this being used this year?
Yes.
Is there training that needs to be done
Some has
with this?
schools have already piloted some of these kits to see how students liked them and teachers liked them. So there's somebody in most schools that have already been using it. However, we are going to offer some virtual after-school options so teachers can understand the purpose behind decodables, and that is the focus of our third year of our Into Reading adoption is small group reading instruction. So that's where the geodes are going to come into that. So
Right.
it will be part of that training ongoing this year.
So our purpose is not necessarily to buy something and give it to the teachers and
No.
say, best of luck.
Oh, no,
You know,
yeah,
we're
yeah.
going to, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I do know what
We
you're
don't want
saying.
to just put stuff in
Yeah.
classrooms. We want to be training teachers how to do it.
Absolutely. It's part of our third year rollout.
This is K2.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we have learning loss. We know that we have second graders entering school in a few weeks who are not reading on a second grade level. Obviously, this gives some flexibility with what students have to read on their level.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Is it okay? I worry about the third graders that aren't reading
I know,
that aren't reading
yeah.
on third grade level, but we'll talk about that.
So how long is the training process?
The training, this is a small group instruction following a phonics lesson in whole group. So the training, we're doing ongoing training all year around reading. The first year we rolled out Into Reading, we looked at whole group instruction. Last year, we did what we could around writing, with it being the year that it was. We're going back and catching up some things about the writing, and the third year was to be small group reading. So our training this year will be around small group reading and how to best maximize the use of decodables for our early readers. So we have 3 training sessions scheduled throughout the year. Because we have a math rollout as well, these trainings will be offered after school and in some different kinds of time slots, because we just don't have enough days for work days to be able to provide it at a time when teachers are not in the classroom. So we want to limit pulling them out. We are also going on the road. Dr. King asked us what a road show was. That's what we call it when we can't bring all the teachers to us. So CIA puts a team together and we create a schedule to go out to the schools. And we usually go to each school and stay there the entire day and are in every single PLC meeting that day. And so some of the training will occur that way in small groups.
That's what I was going to ask. Sometimes that's the most effective way to do it.
It can be, yes, it can.
Yep.
Back in the day, we called that house calls.
Road show, house calls, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion. And
Our finance guy says we're good. All right.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vetrano.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. This is item 8C1. It is an action item on behalf of Dr. Bracy. Present to you 4 administrative recommendations for your consideration and approval. And those have been linked or will be linked following your vote.
I'll entertain a motion to approve Dr. Bracy's recommendations for personnel.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Andrews,
Second.
second by Ms. Sessoms. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we move away from personnel recommendations, would this be an appropriate time to make a recommendation or a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Bracy has just completed his first year as our superintendent, and this past year has to be the most challenging time for any superintendent. And Dr. Bracy has successfully navigated us, and when I say us, I'm talking about our school system, through the many challenges that COVID has thrown our way. And because of his leadership, it would be my honor to move that we extend his contract for an additional year.
Thank you, Ms. Sessom. So we have a motion to extend Dr. Bracy's contract an additional year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Al Byrd. This is a motion and a second, so we'll go to a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Pierce.
Good evening, Chairman Sutton, Lady Vice Chair, Ms. Sessoms, Dr. Bracy, and members of the board. This evening, I share JCPS COVID guidance based on the information that has been provided to us from the Strong Schools Toolkit and from the Johnston County Public Health Department. I would tell you all to please understand that information is coming at us faster than we can adjust sometimes, and we're getting daily updates from our health department on this guidance. So just briefly sharing as an update, this is the slide that has been shown each time. That slide would need to be updated. Today's new report come out at 14.1% with the positivity rate in Johnston County. We just launched on Monday our COVID dashboard again. It is up on our website for our families to see. We've had several families since last time to call to say, if you'll let me know. So if you go to our website, and this is a live link, it would actually show you the quarantines, the active positives by school, and it also has some guiding documents that are in your packets that we'll share with you that we'll go through briefly in just a few minutes. This document here is updated real time, and this information is directly from the Public Health Department when quarantines are done or positives are confirmed through lab confirmed tests. We can go to the next slide. So what we've linked to this this page to give some information to parents is working with the health department. We've tried to let parents know the best we can with some kind of tree, I reckon you could say, or if this happens, this happens. If this happens, this happens. And so I think the most important part of this presentation is to understand that there is guidance for ages 2 to 11 students. There's guidance for ages 12 to 18, and then there's guidance for adults. And so it's really getting, at times you can get confused because you say, well, why don't this age child have to do this? Or why does this age child have to do this? So currently, just as you all know, for a child of age 2 to 11, if they test positive, it says, I can't even read from that far away, so I need to get my own glasses out, don't I? Apologize. Yeah, I get my own out. So it just gives guidance on I test positive. Remember, one of the exclusions of if you test positive is that if you've had COVID in the last 90 days, you can come to school. That you do not have the quarantine in that. I wore a mask. You still have to isolate for 10 days. I did not wear a mask. You still have to isolate for 10 days. So that is the rules. And so you just go right on down the line. You see the different guidance. I've been in close contact with someone with COVID-19, but wore a mask. It says, I have COVID in the last 90 days. Remember that last 90 days you can come to school. The positive case wore a mask, and they wore a mask. That's a new exclusion, if you remember. You can now come to school because both people wore masks. Or the positive case did not wear a mask. Even though you wore a mask, you're quarantined for 10 days if you're deemed a close contact. So it goes all the way through. You see that for the ages 2 to 11, and then you see it for 12 to 18. 12 to 18 basically adds the addition of a vaccine. That is another means of getting out of being deemed a close contact or having to quarantine. The only other document that you'll see is the next document that is provided for you all, and that is for faculty and staff. Once again, this one is a little different because there's a couple of things here. One, if you test positive for COVID, understanding what we're hearing from the guidance is you can test positive for up to 3 months after you were positive. And so it says, I've had COVID in the last 90 days, you have no symptoms, you can come to work. We're treating everyone, if you have symptoms, and we're begging of this, and we're putting this out here as a public announcement, if anything, just as you would pre-COVID. If your child has a fever, stay home. Please do us that favor. If your child or you get tested, stay home till you get the results. That would help us tremendously. And it goes all the way through understanding that a mask does not exempt an employee as a reason of not being a close contact. And that is a major shift from what all the other ones we showed you. An employee, COVID in the last 90 days, or a vaccine, those pretty much are the only two exemption reasons that would get you from not being quarantined if you were exposed or if you were positive. The other two, and this is going to show like it's a bunch of documents, but on there we have a student FAQ, which gives information to parents about decisions that have been made and just gives them a little more information. I think one of the most important questions that we continue to get is that my child's doctor says they can go back to school. Under the direction of the public health director has the autonomy and makes the final say on all quarantines. And so what the public health department says is what we will follow here in our school district. And so that clearly states that in here. Talks about close contacts, talks about if they wear a mask, don't wear a mask, gives some understanding of who's going to enforce masks. This is another big question, and just want to make sure that everyone understands it is the responsibility of the parent to enforce mask wearing for their student if they choose for them to wear a mask. Staff will give general reminders to students and parents who have chosen for them to wear a mask, but it will not be on the schools to guarantee that masks are being worn. That responsibility is on the students and the parents. It gives some guidance on proof of vaccination. Once again, we will not require anyone to show us proof of vaccination, but in the event that we have to do contact tracing, it would help us tremendously if you voluntarily went ahead and showed if you've been vaccinated or if you've been positive with COVID in the last 90 days, because that would help us expedite. In the event we don't have that, you would have to quarantine until the health department tells us that you are eliminated because of one of those exclusions, or could come back, should I say. Last but not least, there is a slide, and I just went through all of those. There is a slide for staff. It is short for now, and I'm sure there'll be more questions that come up on it, but basically it talks about when they would have to quarantine. It talks about what I talked about before. Once again, doctors, they can give the information, but the health department is the one who tells them how long they're quarantined for and when they can return. It is not the responsibility of our staff to enforce the mask wearing. It talks about, will teachers be expected to instruct students remotely? Remember, at this time, we will not offer remote learning during those 10 days that students are quarantined. And then we give teachers the understanding that they can ask parents during orientation if their child, if they want them to wear a mask or not. So they'll have that notation to know what that request was. We all know kids are going to be kids when they get on buses and things of that sort. So we know that's going to happen. And then the other question is, as an employee, will I be asked to show proof of vaccination? And so JCPS may ask for voluntary submission, but we will not ask unless it's the case of you're exposed or we're working a case of COVID-19. If you want to share it up front, by all means you can. And then the last slide, something, if you remember last time we met on the 29th, there was an update about 2 o'clock, and then we came in and spoke to you all. And so one of the things that's in the Strong Tools Toolkit that we want to make sure the board is aware of is that in the toolkit on page 9, it says during school transportation, CDC orders apply to all public transportation conveyances, including school buses. Regardless of the mask policy at schools, all passengers and drivers should wear a mask on school buses, including on buses operated by the school systems, subject to the exclusion and exemptions of the CDC order. And so, board, without objection, we will move forward with this requirement set forth in the Strong Schools Guide, updated on the 29th, and will require face coverings on all Johnston County Schools buses based on this recommendation. And this guidance is all coming from the Strong's Toolkit, and it's coming from the Public Health Department. Any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Pierce?
Now, all of this information is on our website?
Yes, Caitlin, can you go back real quick? It's on the dashboard, and it's available. We put it live today around lunchtime.
Will it be given to parents at orientations or anything like that, or will they be reminded of this information as orientations begin, I guess, next week?
Yes and no. I don't want to speak for anyone. I'm sure it can be given if they request a copy of it, by all means, yes. But most schools will be sending out information, just reminding what the board's decisions mean and where you can go find the information. And they're also in the Gazette. Caitlin?
It's the first thing you see on our website, and with your all having looked at it, we're going to start putting it on social media and advertising it as soon as possible.
And I would just hope that every parent would take a close look at this information. You know, we have voted to give parents a choice. It's my hope and prayer that you make the right one. I'm sure that we will come back and continue to follow what's been, you know, what's happening in our school district with our numbers. The dashboard is updated daily.
Live. Every time someone's entered, it's live.
And certainly watch these numbers closely to make sure that we can keep kids in school, because that's what this is about.
And Dr. Pierce, just for clarification for our public, this is based on our optional masking vote, correct?
Yes.
If we had voted for mandatory masking, would students then need to be quarantined?
Depends. I can't give you a direct answer. So if you'd have voted for a mandatory mask, and for students, if both students were wearing a mask and there was a positive, there would not be close contact tracing to occur.
Means that the quarantine would, they would not automatically be quarantined?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, board members, you know, I would say based on the information that we see and what, I think we are a red county now.
I believe so, yes.
Red County with transmission, and what we've seen with schools that have already taken in and the number of quarantines they've already experienced, and the fact that I think 80% of the cases now are the new Delta variant. That we mandate masks K-12 in the school system, so we can give the system, the students, the teachers, and our staff the best opportunity to have a normal school semester at least at this point. That would be my motion to mandate masks.
Mr. Carroll, I would second that, and the reason I will is because we are now at 14.1%. That is the same level where we were in December when the health department urged us to shut schools down. And I don't know of any family that wants schools shut down again. From what I hear from families, school is important for children. They need to be in school. And that's just looking at the data, the fact that we are now at the same level where we were in December when we had to force a shutdown.
So we have a motion and a second to mandate mask, and I'm assuming, Mr. Carroll, you're talking about K-12 for students and staff. Is that correct?
I think that was my motion.
Okay. Okay.
Inside buildings.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
You know, this is a very difficult situation. There's no question. But this is a scenario that I just want to play out. And Dr. Pierce, I just need your help here, okay? Because I've struggled with this. I'm going to be just as honest as I can be. If I am in the classroom, if I'm correct here, if I am in the classroom and I do not wear a mask, I'm a student in Johnston County Public Schools and I do not have a mask on, and Mr. Wooten and Ms. Sessoms and Mr. Sutton are sitting near me in the classroom, and they have their mask on. Their parents chose to put them in a mask. I test positive. I do not have a mask on. My parents made that choice, which I understand completely. But I did not wear a mask, and I test positive. Mr. Wooten, Ms. Sessoms, and Mr. Sutton are going home and going to be quarantined off of the choice that I made. Is that correct? I don't want any comments from the audience.
You were within 6 feet of them for 15 minutes or longer cumulative.
For a
yes.
24-hour period.
No, in a 24-hour period.
Right, which would be a school.
Yes, that answer is yes.
So my choice, my parents' choice of not having me wear a mask is going to could send potentially 3 students home for 10 days who wore a mask.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm going to make a comment that, you know, the masks are part of a number of things that we need to do. You know, it's the distancing, it's the cleaning the schools, hand washing, and both people having a mask. You know, masks have shown to cut down the transmission. There's no question about that. That's data, that's science. You know, anything else is just taking a stance. It's not 100% all by itself, but when you put it with the rest of what you're doing, I'm telling you, that's our best chance to give parents what they beat us to death about, in-person learning. In-person learning. That's all we heard, in-person learning. And the best opportunity we have of trying to accomplish that, and I don't know that we will based on what the data and the way it's going, the best chance we have of delivering that, the least amount of disruption, is to mandate mask and hope that we get by.
You know, I'm happy to, whatever the decision is tonight, happy to we have to continue to revisit our situation here in Johnston County, but I'm just really struggling with the decision of one affecting many. Now, that wasn't the case back before. Is that right, Dr. Pierce? That wasn't the case when we were in school before. If I tested, well, everybody had on masks, but if I tested positive with a mask on, everybody still went home. But the way the new guidelines are, and again, we have no choice about this protocol. This is set. We can't come in here as a school board and say we're not going to do this. But the way it's now being done, if I understand correctly, if a student tests positive, the rest, if they're masked, have masks on. And I hate the mask as much as anybody does. But if it keeps kids in school, you know, now these kids get to stay. Is that correct?
That is the major change, that anyone 18 and younger, now the mask can keep you from being a close contact.
Even if you are close to them.
So
right, and again, we didn't set these guidelines. These guidelines are set by...
And this virus is, the positivity rate is what I am so concerned about, because in June we were at 2.4, 2.9%. It kind of went back and forth on a weekly basis. And in July we were up to what?
On the 22nd of July, it was 9.1%.
Okay, so within 4 weeks we doubled where we were from June to July. And in talking with our public health director, you know, she's telling us that it's the Delta variant, that these children are transmitting the disease, that we have multiple clusters within our daycares and summer camps. And now, in 2 weeks, we've gone from that last number up to 14%. So it is multiplying rapidly.
I'm going to say again, with the way the data is and the way we're going, we're on a track to put parents, students, staff, everybody in the most turmoil we can. The best bet, the best chance is to do all we can. Not to mention that the longer we allow this virus to be transmitted, the greater the chance that we're going to see. We already have 2 mutants out there. And we've seen the second one, Delta, has been much worse than the first. So, we can't play with science. I mean, it is what it is, no matter what you want to try to say. It's going to do what it's always done.
Well, and we cannot control what the rules are for students that test positive. This is my main emphasis, is we have no control over what they tell us has to happen when kids test positive. If we had some control over it, we might do something different, but we can't change it. We can't not quarantine kids. And understand, we do not have remote learning. And I'm going to tell y'all, I'm going to lose sleep if I see a student, and we will if we don't do that. If I see a kid, he goes home August the 25th, the 3rd day of school, he gets sent home for 10 days. He has nothing but a packet of work to take home with him. He comes back 10 days later, he gets exposed again, he's going home for another 10 days. How in the world are we going to increase academic achievement if we can't keep our kids in school? I don't like the protocol, I don't like the rules, but we have to go by them. Until they change or until we can get a better grasp of what is going on. And I hate COVID, I hate the fact that we have to address this, but this is what it is. And I hate masks. I hate putting them on small children. I do think it's very, I hurt for the kids who have to wear these masks all day long. I don't want that for them. But I know this, they're not going to learn if they're not in school. I know that. I'm a former educator, I know that.
Mr. Chairman, call to question.
We have a call to question. We have a motion and a second on the floor to mandate mask. And we're going to show by raising hands. All in favor of mandating masks, please raise your hand. All in favor? No. Motion carries 4-3 to mandate mask. Thank you, Dr. Pierce. It is past 6 o'clock. So at this time, we're going to take a small break to get set up for public comment, and then we will start with public comment. Tonight, we have 15 speakers signed up for public comment. Citizens who have signed up to address the board during public comment will be called upon as they signed up and will have 3 minutes to address the board, followed by a buzzer at the end of the 3 minutes. I will call upon citizens who have signed up for the time allocated on the agenda. If the additional speakers remain at the end of the allocated time, the remaining speakers will be called upon prior to the conclusion of our meeting, not to exceed 60 minutes. The board suggests that specific personnel or student matters be addressed to the school principal, the Johnston County Public School System official responsible for the program or facility, or to the superintendent, and are not appropriate for this setting. Tonight, our first speaker is Mr. Alan Hall. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Second is Miss Liz Beck.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I come to you today as a mother, volunteer, PTA member, activist, and concerned citizen. My husband and I work full-time. We are a blue-collar family trying to make ends meet. Our 2 boys have been in JCPS since they started preschool. We moved to this area 9 years ago, hoping for a better school experience than we felt that we could get in Wake County. At the end of my boys' 5th and kindergarten school years, the pandemic hit. Both my boys were sent home with very little information as to what would come next. Last year, they were in 6th and 1st grades. They did virtual for a good portion of the year. When my older son was able to go hybrid, he diligently wore his mask and socially distanced. When I had to go back to work, my younger son went from virtual to in-person and wore his mask. Both my boys are much happier in person in school. Both willingly and diligently wear their masks because they understand that their mask keeps their friends safe and their teachers safe. What they do not understand is other friends and teachers who won't wear a mask to keep my boys safe. They are happy to do what they can to stop this pandemic. My older son is 12 and asked to be vaccinated as soon as he could. So we let him get the vaccine. My husband and I ourselves got the vaccine. My son wanted the vaccine to help stop this pandemic and to help protect his brother and his younger friends. My younger son wants the vaccine too so that he can be safe. Unfortunately, he is not old enough yet. I am grateful that you now understand the full possible consequences of not mandating masks. If my older son is in class and one of his friends tests positive, being vaccinated and wearing a mask protects him from becoming ill. And thankfully, him being vaccinated will protect him from quarantine. But my younger child is not able to be vaccinated yet. Fingers crossed that'll happen soon. And so if someone in his class tests positive and doesn't wear a mask, my son will have to quarantine, which means 10 days of no school, 10 days of worksheets and no work for me, and busy work and praying that he can catch up in the 2nd grade. He already struggles with reading and math. He had a speech impediment for a number of years and finally graduated out of speech therapy just last year. Kids are resilient. Kids follow our example and they model our behavior. When we wear masks to protect others, our children will wear masks to protect others. Ultimately, my children will go to school and my children will wear masks. Virtual is not an option for our family. We have to work. With case counts skyrocketing across the state and across our county, and masks being optional, it would have been a disaster. So I am grateful to you that you made masks mandatory for my children, for everyone's children, and for all of the teachers, because we can't have school without teachers. And if the teachers have to quarantine, then all the kids are screwed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. Next, we have Miss Kara Chester.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to give the speech I had prepared tonight based on the decision tonight. I absolutely disagree with this decision. Masks are not healthy for kids. I'm sorry, but they're not. There was a doctor that spoke at the Indiana School Board just recently that stated that masks will not stop this virus. That is why it is still around today, a year and a half later. The masks will not stop the virus. Let's teach washing hands, taking vitamin C, taking vitamin D, and zinc, all of which naturally boost your immunity without covering your face. The masks are filthy. They're dirty. They have more germs in them. You're inhaling your own CO2. They're not healthy. I personally cannot wear a mask due to medical condition that I have. And every day that I can't wear a mask, I have to fight the crowd. I have to fight. I have to keep fighting. And I cannot wear a mask. It's not because I don't want to. I don't want to, but I can't. My daughter can't wear it either. She gets very bad anxiety when she has to put a mask on. I took her to the doctor the other day. She had to put a mask on to go into the doctor's office. As a result of wearing the mask, her blood pressure was high. She is a 12-year-old girl, and she has high blood pressure due to anxiety from these masks. She cannot learn in an environment where she has to wear a mask all day. I'm highly disappointed. COVID's not going to go away for a long time. Masks are not going to stop it. I don't know what else to say, but we'll remember which way you guys voted. Things need to change in America. When I was a kid, America was great. Think back to when you were a kid and what America was like. We don't live in America today. I don't want my daughter growing up in the America that we have today. The only way to make changes is at the local level. It's not going to change at the federal level or even the state level. We need your support to make the good changes, to make America what it should be, to make America great again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chester. Next, we have Diana. And I apologize on the last. Kudzinski. Thank you.
So, I too will revise my speech a little bit, considering the vote. I know you've seen a lot of support from parents who are unwilling to mask their children or themselves. I came here tonight because I thought it was important that you see that there are parents out there who oppose this position, yet still believe in parental choice. As parents, we choose to send our children to schools where we think they will thrive educationally. We choose to adhere to the rules set forth by that school, and we do this with the knowledge that the rules listed within it are providing a standard of safety for environmental growth. Now, I've heard repeatedly that this mask decision boils down to parental choice, and forgive me for being glib, but if parents' wishes weren't kept in mind on deciding whether or not my kid can wear a tank top to school, I'm a bit remiss on why they're allowed to influence a measure that has the possibility of keeping my child in school and learning. Regardless of how unpopular or controversial a measure may be, your accountability is to the students, not to their parents. This board's sole objective in crafting policy should be driven by this one question: will this measure help to provide a sound, basic, quality education in a safe and orderly environment? That right there is the verbatim missive on your Johnston County's Board of Education's landing page. Let us be painfully clear. This vote was never about a parent's choice to mask. It was about some parents' desire to unmask. You've seen that proof right here. This subset of parents who don't believe in the effectiveness of masks were already celebrating your decision as a victory. You honestly think they're thinking about more than just their own child when they send them to school? Of course they're not, but that's your job. Think for one moment how one day of one quarantine is equal to the total amount of absences that we normally allow a student in 1 year. One. Imagine what 2 would do to that student. 3, 4. Not just a handful of students, but to hundreds of students. Let's look at the increased percentages of children who are being held back this year, where mandatory masks were in place. Imagine what that number will balloon to after a year of optional masks and endless quarantines. And finally, let's look at how this leaves our exceptional children program woefully behind, with many IEPs failing to fulfill what is likely their legally binding purpose. I don't really care if you believe in COVID. I really don't. That's not your concern. Your concern is to provide a safe environment for our students to learn. I applaud you for your decision tonight. I know it was difficult, and I hope that you keep this in mind every time this comes up, keep watching the numbers, listen to the data. Data is data. That's the beauty of it. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Caroline Miklosevic. Did I get that right?
Back until you get it right, and you did this time, so thank you. Yeah. Okay, well, we were just thrown a curveball, and even though we know this was planned by some, you guys adjusted your plans, so now we're going to do that with our students. And we just go back to the drawing board as parents, and we'll come up with a game plan. I am going to address this regardless of your all's vote. So, to Ms. Sessoms, you took your time at the last meeting to try and preach to the parents, knowing that we couldn't comment back, and I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for recommending we model our behavior to our children, because you reminded the majority of Johnstonians who are conservatives to make sure that we continue to instill in our children those same values. And thank you for modeling your behavior, which proved to everybody that you hold yourself in higher regard than your constituents. And just FYI for everybody, all of the parents of Johnston County actually can find access to the same AMA medical journals, abstracts, and studies that your family can. Because of your comments, and I quote, "I come to this table and make decisions on what I believe is best, not what a group of parents wants me to do." You reminded the voters of JOCO to make sure the person we
Ms.
vote
Caroline,
in.
you had directed a lot of your comments to Ms. Sessoms.
Okay.
I can't allow that to happen.
Okay.
So if you've got something that addresses the whole board, that's fine, but
Okay.
individually, I can't let that go on.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Barbara Monk.
Thank you. And good evening. My name is Barbara Monk, and I am a retired school teacher of 38 years. I applaud your informed decision to mandate masks. You have voted to minimize the spread, and now some students and teachers will be spared the illness, an illness that my husband and I had in December. We are still recovering. My husband, who went into the hospital walking, came out not walking, and to this day he is still walking with a cane or a walker. COVID is a serious condition to have if you are infected. It is long-lasting. It is expensive. It changes your lifestyle. All those trips that we were going to fly off to because I'm retired, we can't go unless we find a way that he can participate. It's not fair, I know, and I know that there are kids who have asthma. But let me tell you, COVID affects breathing. That's why so many people have problems getting out of the hospital, because the amount of oxygen they need can only be administered in a setting that is rehabilitation center. It's a serious, if you don't believe it, as somebody who has had COVID. And for some of the teachers and some of the staff, some people will not return this school year. When they go out with an infection, they may not come back in. So I just thank you. I know you didn't want to do it. I know it. Nobody wants to wear a mask, and nobody wants kids to have to wear a mask all day long. But I would rather see them wear a cloth mask than one of those oxygen masks in the hospital. So I just thank you. I applaud you for your courage. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Monk. Next, we have Kelly Bernard.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Bernard. I have been a TA at Johnston County Schools most of last year. I'm currently a substitute teacher for both Johnston County and for Wake County. I applaud your decision tonight. As was mentioned, if a student comes to school unmasked with COVID and the students around that infected student are not vaccinated, those students go home. I am 100% for parent choice, all the way, no question. But choices have consequences. And I'm not okay with other people's choices causing my students to bear the consequences. It's really that simple. Until these policies change, and I know you did not make these policies. You are voting the best way you can based on the policies available that have been given to you, and I thank you. Teachers cannot teach to empty desks. These things are a pain in the neck. I wore one all year. They are not easy, but they are an inconvenience, and not a small one. But without them, it's an impedance, because our kids will have to quarantine if they're exposed. So if this topic comes up again, I really want you to look at the policies and really think about that, so that we're not revisiting this over and over, so that we're not living in fear of policies changing over and over. We need to prioritize what's more important. Optional these or our kids' education. And this is a board of education, not a board of mask mandate mitigation. So I hope you will continue to make the best choices that will keep our students in school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sarah Anderson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sarah Anderson, and I am an educator employed by the school system. I am here now to thank you for your reconsideration for mandatory masks. I am here because I teach students who are being raised by grandparents, or who have a parent or a grandparent going through chemotherapy, or who have a sibling who's immunocompromised. They should not have to worry about what they bring home. This is a picture of my brother, my parents, and myself taken the summer of 2019. I want to share my story with you. My family was together for my dad's 90th birthday. This year, on Sunday of January 17th, my daughter and I had the opportunity to visit my parents, who reside in the independent living portion of a larger retirement community. We had to meet them in the parking lot of a grocery store, as no visitors were allowed in that retirement community. They sat in their car, vaccinated and masked, with the windows down, and my daughter and I sat in my car, masked, she with a vaccine, me not yet vaccinated. We had a nice visit. My dad said he felt a winter cold coming on, but he made light of it. That was the last time I saw my dad. The following Wednesday, January 20th, in the early morning hours, he used the restroom, fell, and he had a gash in his head. He was rushed off to the hospital by himself. My mother was not allowed to go to the hospital due to their rules and the rules of the retirement community. They sewed up the gash and tested him for COVID. He tested positive, even though he had recently completed both vaccinations. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I was able to speak to him by phone. The conversations were short. His words and his breath were very labored. On Saturday, he took a turn for the worse. My mother called me and my brother to have that painful conversation about a ventilator. He had been clear that that was not his wish. On January 25th, I was at school teaching. My mom called to tell me he was gone.
He died without any of us there. Because he had COVID, my mother had to test negative twice before I could socially distance visit her for 30 minutes. She lost her husband of 60 years, and my family joined a group of now 615,000 other families that none of us wanted to be a part of. A mask, social distancing, washing your hands, and a vaccination can keep your family from being part of this group. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking this vote tonight, because I know it will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Next, we have Stuart Lee.
Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to speak. I've changed so much about what I wanted to say, but if anything, Ms. Anderson's comments should at least impart on the ones who voted against this tonight, the three, to at least reconsider if this comes up again. I was thinking about the gentleman who was being awarded for being a school resource officer. I don't know how many of you have been a school resource officer. I haven't been. But their job is to protect our schools, keep them safe. When you shake his hands, do you ever think, you know what, maybe tomorrow we should leave your job up to parental choice? That's his job, to enforce safety, protect us, and make sure our students are safe. It's not parental choice. In Johnston County, there could be a slight threat of snow, like the slightest threat. The first thing we do is we close the schools down because there's a perceived threat to our students, our teachers. We never want to say, you know what, maybe today, rather than closing schools, we should say, let's give parents the choice of busing their kids in. You know, it should be up to them. It's not really about a threat. It's parental choice. And then if we look at what's on the board right here under relevance, all Johnston County public schools will create shared learning environments that are safe. It doesn't say safe in quotations, but up to parental choice. I hope the next time this comes up, that it's a universal raising of hands, that it's not parental choice, it's a public health crisis, it's about the safety of our schools and our students. We employ people to do it, we close schools down when we think there's a perceived threat, and we even have it on the board. Create a shared learning environment that are safe. Next time, I hope all hands are up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Next, we have Stacy Lee.
Got up and said she had 38 years. Who's that? 38 years? I got you before. My name is Stacy Lee, and I'm from Four Oaks, and I was in a classroom for 42 years in one form, fashion or the other. And I want to pin a little rose on Dr. Bracy. I set up a meeting last August, and I came in for 10 minutes, and he sat down and he says, don't worry about the time. And Terry, you know what that means, don't you? But anyway, we talked about 30 minutes, and you remember the story about that's just who you are. That's just who I am. My presentation has changed some because of the other things. I was not a man. You did a good job, Kay, and your comments, Terry, about the mask. We just have to do what we've got to do. You got to have a game plan, right, Mr. Bird? Mr. Bird, right, there's Mr. Bird. You got to have a game plan in football, and you have to change the game plan if it don't work out in the first quarter. But I started my comments before say that we're a great republic, 230 years, greatest republics ever existed. And it's existed this long because we are a country of laws. But of late, we have become lawless. We are lied to. And this is part of our problem with this mask thing, this COVID thing. We've been lied to, not given information. And I appreciate the information that you've put out tonight. And Lynn, I'll go to education on this one. During the Vietnam War in Cumberland County, I had a lot of military-related kids, a lot of girls who needed daddies and little boys who needed fathers. And they're off in war. And our reading test scores were poor. And when Dr. King got up and started talking about that reading, I call it a reading program, I saw your eyes light up. And mine did too, because we were poor in reading. Every teacher that year, with federal money we had got through the soldiers program, we started a reading program, and every teacher had to teach reading for 45 minutes every day. Every teacher. Our scores shot up. It will work. It will work if the dedication's there. The republic we live in, it comes on down. We got 50 states are republics, 100 counties in our state, and every community here is a republic. Information is what we need, and people need to take advantage of the information. Thomas Jefferson, when he came out of the building with the Constitutional Convention after 2 months of keeping the blinds closed and fussing and fighting, they asked him, they said, what kind of government do you give us? And he says, a republic, if you can keep it. They had fussed and fought in that room. And some of those that I have admired all my life, they voted no. But here's what I'm saying. We have got to save this nation. We have got to save it. We're in trouble. And part of it starts with education.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Next, we have Kate Blinko.
Much, Dr. Bracey and members of the board. I am really glad to be here tonight, and I was honestly thrilled with your decision. I am a parent of 3 children in the Johnston County school system, as well as an educator here. And I know these things aren't fun. I know that as a parent, I know that as an educator, I know that as a person with asthma. I don't want to have this on, but it keeps me safe and those around me safe. Now, honestly, Dr. Pierce stole a bit of my thunder tonight. I wanted to talk about the updates to the North Carolina Toolkit for Strong Schools, and he obviously covered that better than I could have. What I would like to share with you, though, is some data from schools that did begin their school year with an optional mask policy, much like what we were going to do originally, and what's happened in those schools over the past few days. We have a school in Mooresville, North Carolina, which is in Iredell County. After 4 days of school, they had 80 students quarantined under the optional mask policy. It would have been less than 10 under the mask mandate, and that is per the superintendent of that county. In Union Academy Charter of North Carolina, 150 students were quarantined after the 5th day of school under the optional mask policy. It would have been 14. And while this is outside of North Carolina a little bit, in Marion School District of Arkansas, by the 7th day of school, they had over 730 students under quarantine. That has now gone over 1,000. That would have been 42 with a mask mandate in place. So while I know this is not a decision any of you rejoiced in making, I applaud your decision because this will prevent Johnston County from being in the same situation as Iredell and Union counties. To help put this in perspective, Iredell County has 34 COVID cases per 100,000 people right now. Union County has 35 cases per 100,000. Johnston County has 41. So considering our COVID levels were so consistent, I think we would have ended up in the same boat. So thank you for the opportunity to have my children in school and to have my classroom full of students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Crocker.
Can I ask a question real quick so I don't mess up? This is my first time speaking. Am I able to address members of the board? No, not at all. Not even if I'm just, okay, all right. That's fine. We'll make do. My name is Bill Crocker. I am a parent of 4 children, 2 of whom go to Powhatan Elementary. And I'm also a military veteran with underlying health conditions. My wife and I are also both full-time workers. I sent you all an email earlier today with facts on why masks are important for all students and staff. I appreciate the decision that you have all made today. Facts such as the AAP urging masks for all students and staff of schools, the CDC director calling this most recent surge the pandemic of the unvaccinated, a recent Duke University study detailing how masks were effective in reducing the spread and transmission of COVID-19 in our schools during this last school year. And just this last week, the AAP reported that we saw an 85% increase in COVID-19 positive cases in children. This is not just about me. There are parents sitting at home right now worried about their children with underlying health conditions, knowing that the science supports that for the mental health of their babies, they need to be in school, but that the science also supports that everyone needs to wear a mask for now. There are families like mine that are having to consider one spouse quitting their job to care for their children at home. While I am new to this county, I have done some research, and while I can't mention you by name, there has been some comments made from this board. Whenever you guys essentially came to be a part of this board, whenever you were running for this seat, you've made comments such as that you were looking to make a difference, that you were not going to take this appointment lightly, to saying that you would make the best possible decisions for children and parents. There is a board member here who has been mentioned as a mentor, a teacher, a great dude, a brother, a police officer that cares, and finally, one of the greatest teachers. I don't know. Also, that individual has made it a point that the big part of their life is promoting grace, mercy, and loving our fellow man. There's also one that also made point of saying that school safety, mental health, and fiscal responsibility was important to them. I ask that you consider to keep this mandate in place. If you are committed to leading, then I ask that you look your constituents in the eyes and you give them the hard truth. And that hard truth is that as much as we all do not like wearing masks, they are our best protection for our children at this time. And I'm thankful that you made the decision that you did, and I ask that you uphold that decision and that you hold firm. Thank you so much.
Next, we have April Lee.
Good evening, Chairman Sutton, Madam Vice Chair Sessoms, members of the board, and Dr. Bracey. My name is April Lee, and I'm a classroom teacher of 20 years this year, a mother of 2 current JCPS students and 1 JCPS graduate, and I'm the president of Johnston County Association of Educators. First, I want to let you know that this shirt is not directed at you. It was a misnomer I decided to co-opt. So it's for my fan club. I want to address the optional mask decision and just say thank you for reversing course. Ms. Andrews, I know that takes a lot of courage, and I admire you for that. My comments tonight were going to be directed at exactly the same things that you addressed, protecting instructional time with our students. I would also like to say on the end of parents who are also teachers, this is another thing that you should consider in the future. If my daughter were to quarantine, I would be out of my classroom for those 10 days, which means that my 100 plus students would be impacted by my absence. So that is another part that was not discussed tonight, but you need to consider that for your working parents who are educators. It has a ripple effect. I also encourage you to set a time limit on the mask, like when we're going to re-look at this again, so that we can say this is a definitive date, and continue to look at the data. Nobody wants this to be permanent. Back in June, I didn't think we would be wearing masks at the beginning of the school year. I was hopeful that we wouldn't. But as the data changed, so did my stance on us wearing masks, right? We have to be responsive to the data that is there. So I'm skipping through the things I don't need to say. Here we go. I also want to remind you that we educate students from all kinds of backgrounds, religions, cultures, and family structures. Our students deserve to have teachers and staff who are trained to meet their needs. All of them, not some of them. Please don't abandon the value of equity training for our staff, because we have some loud folks in our communities, some whose children aren't even enrolled in our school district. Our county is changing, and we must be responsive to the changing needs of the children we serve. We must also follow the policy in place for challenging any books before they are removed by principals and librarians. This protects our First Amendment rights and continues to meet the needs of all of our students, not just one segment of our population. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Jack Chrisman.
Good evening. Most of you I've known for 30-some years, and I have 42 years in education, most of them here in Johnston County. I want to thank you for this decision. We have to do what's best for our children and not what we think about politically. It must be about the safety of our children, and I certainly do appreciate it. You've made my speech much shorter. Thank you.
And our last speaker tonight is Dr. Williams.
Good evening, Dr. Bracey, board members. I want to thank you for your time and for your service to our county. My name is Dr. Chuck Williams. I've been a physician with Horizon Family Medicine in our community for 20 years. I have 3 boys who have been educated by our system, still have one that's a senior in high school over at Clayton High. I come before you tonight really on behalf of all of us working on the front lines of the pandemic, and thank you for this vote. I can't tell you how discouraged and tired we've been the last year and a half, and this really is the right move for the safety of our students. Thank you. You've touched on some of these numbers, but since earlier this summer, our average case count has gone from 500 to 4,000 a day. Our positive percentage test has gone from 4% to 14%. We had 409 people in the hospital in July. We have over 2,000 in the hospital as of today. Our office in Clayton the last 3 weeks is a great example of what will happen in a couple weeks when we start school. We've had an incredible increase in the number of people coming through our office with COVID, and most of them are children. They're the unvaccinated, and the virus will go after whoever is not protected. Just one example, last week we had 15 kids from a church camp diagnosed. They all went home, had to quarantine, and subsequently spread to families, parents, and siblings. The situation in Clayton, again, is a preview of what's going to happen in our schools when they open, despite our best intentions. Ms. Andrews' point tonight was well taken. It was one of the points I was going to make. If nothing else, make this decision to keep the kids in the classroom. Wearing a mask at a minimum will decrease the number of students that have to quarantine. For that reason, it's the right decision alone. Our medical community desperately wants students back in place. All the professional societies that you look at agree that in-person learning is the way to go. Masks aren't perfect. They're not perfect, but they do decrease the risk of transmission. And according to the CDC, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, all recommend universal masking in all grades right now, regardless of vaccination status. The ABC Science Collaborative, which you guys have touched on previously, was done right here in our backyard with Duke. And their conclusion was that proper masking is the most effective mitigation strategy to prevent COVID-19 transmission in our schools. I'd also like to echo the suggestion that was made tonight that obviously the policy can be revisited. We can examine this month to month by special sessions called by you all, and we look at the numbers. We use the case count. We use the positive percentage test. There's numbers and data we can look at to adjust, and we all want to pull this back as soon as it's safe to do so. Along with continuing to push for vaccinations, who again are still only available for our students who are 12 and up, masking represents the most important thing we can do to keep our kids in school. I want to thank you for your time, for your service. Thank you for the courage of your vote tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. That concludes our public comment tonight. At this time, I'll call on Mr. Kendrick Bird.
Good evening, Chairman Sutton, Vice Chair Sessoms, Dr. Bracey, and members of the board. I would like to present for your approval the 21-22 renewal contract of Marzanos Academy for Benson Middle School at the cost of $126,000. Benson Middle School, which is a restart school, began using the Marzano Academies in the spring of 2019 school year. The program was chosen based on its evidence and research-based practices to increase academic achievement. As a restart school, additional measures are implemented to improve student achievement. Thus, the utilization of this program by teachers will support Johnston County Public Schools' current curriculum and academic goals. Through a strategic combination of Marzanos Academies, instructional resources, professional development, research, evaluation, leadership development, and virtual and on-site program evaluation and coaching. Marzano Academies will assist Benson Middle Schools with increasing academic achievement for all students. The cost to purchase Marzano Academies will be $126,000 for 1 year. Benson Middle will pay $69,000 from Restart and $57,000 from Title I. Again, this is presented for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. I entertain a motion to approve the Marzano Academy for Benson Middle School, cost totaling $126,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sessom, second by Mr. Wooten. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Byrd. There's no further business from the board. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wooten, second by Mr. Carroll. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 7-0.